tell you how grateful I was later that I didn't. I would have said something I regretted. And it's very hard to tell somebody, I didn't mean it, because you know what they think. Then why did you say it? And then everybody's an amateur psychologist. That must be what you think down deep. It finally came out. Just, if you could hold it, that's a rule of life, I think, that will serve you so well. Shh. When you most feel like saying it, don't say it. The emotional urge to say it is the signal to not say it. And if you say, yeah, but I'm driven by emotion, there's no way I can stop it. You can practice. You walk into a weight room, and the 100-pound dumbbells are sitting there.
Oh, no.
That's what we use. We use 100-pound dumbbells, each hand. Takes a double spotter, because most people can't even pick up 100-pound dumbbells. You can't walk into that weight room and go to those 100-pound dumbbells. You go to the 10s, the 15s, 20s. And believe it or not, even guys, they start at 30. You know? So most women SEALs could kill you. But it's like this with anger. You may not be able to shut your mouth under certain situations, but you can shut your mouth on the 20-pound situations. You can't handle the hundreds, but you can do it with the 20s. And practice it. You'll get better at it. Trust me on this one. One more. I have to get it all out and then I feel better. I feel better. You know, I vent. I have to vent. There used to be a theory in psychology called catharsis. And what that essentially says is that you have to get these emotions out. They have to be expressed, or you will have psychological struggles. You could get an ulcer. Of course, ulcers are now, we used to think it was stress. Ulcers are now caused by bacteria. Catharsis is totally wrong. When you vent, when you get it all out, you know what you're doing? One, you're reinforcing the venting habit. If I vent once, I'm more likely to vent again next time around. And pretty soon, like water running down a channel, it runs faster and quicker as the channel gets deeper. And every time it rains, the water goes like this. And that's exactly what you're doing when you vent. That's one. Two, but I do feel a sense of relief. No, you don't. You feel a sense of fatigue. It's not relief. Don't confuse fatigue with relief. What you did and said was an explosion of emotion. Now that you quote-unquote feel better, you don't feel better. You feel more exhausted, sheepish. Three, you may feel better. He doesn't. You just blasted him. Okay? Maybe you feel better because you vented. You're the venteur. It's not good for the ventee. He gets creamed. Venting does nothing but make you more likely to vent the next time around. Okay, I don't want to keep you guys too long. Questions? Yes, dear?
What about the notion, I've heard so many times repeated, that anger is a safer emotion than hurt? That we respond in anger, but really truly we're hurt?
Anger is a safer emotion than hurt. We respond in anger, but really truly we're hurt. That's a small percentage of the time. Okay, you can't do a flat-out formula that says, when I'm angry, I'm really hurt. But the only way you could do that is when you take it personal. You know, if in fact in my marriage, my wife says or does something and I take it personally, it's a direct attack on me in my mind, and then I get mad. Okay, you could say my anger is springing from my misinterpretation of hurt. But in fact, anger is more often frustration at the situation or at the person. It is just raw, I don't like it this way. I don't want it to be this way. I don't want you to act like this. Why can't you be nicer? I can't believe you said that. Okay, so most of the time it's not necessarily so psychologically complex. Okay? Anger is, in my opinion as a psychologist, not a safer emotion than hurt. Anger is damaging. Anger ruins relationships. Okay, if I'm hurt by you, I may start to pull away from you and not want to be around you as much, but it's not as devastating. You know, anger can be nasty. Now, most of us, in the book, I talk about eruptive anger versus percolating anger. Most of you don't have eruptive anger. Very few people lose it. They really do. And if they lose it, it's periodically. But the bigger problem is the irritating, agitated, easily prickly, responsive kind of, I'm just not content and I don't know why it is. I'll get moms come into my office a lot that way, and they'll come in, they'll say because they're depressed or because they're frustrated. And we talk. A high percentage of the time, it's the children. They feel inept. They feel frustrated dealing with the children. And they variously interpret all this as a reflection on them. They feel impotent. They can't stop this chaos that runs my house. And what happens is they translate that into, I just don't feel good. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm not happy. I was such a nicer person before I had children. Now I got the priest on retainer. Bless me, Father. Would it be a mortal sin to, like, throw your kid face first through a plate glass window?
No.
Would that be child abuse?
No.
Would they call 1-800-KID-SLAP on me?
Oh.
Another question, thought. Yes, ma'am.
The kind of venting that women tend to do with their girlfriends or with their spouse after an event, where
Yes.
they're like, I was angry, and you know, is that healthy or?
Okay, there's a chapter in the book called Rehearse or Reverse. What we tend to do that prolongs our upset, we rehearse. I'm going to go over it in my head. And I'm going to think all of the misinterpretations that I thought 22 minutes ago when I was at my most upset. So I think about, well, how can he say that to me? You know, what I do for him, and this is how he reacts. He doesn't appreciate anything. So you just rehearse this. And what tends to happen is when you do it with a friend, what do? They don't do this. Let's think about this more clearly. No, they go, he is a slob, isn't he? I know my husband's the same way. You rehearse the injustice of it all, the unfairness of it all, and you keep rehearsing rather than shifting it around and starting to talk to yourself a little more clearly, a little more logically, so that you tone it down. All right? You may have an irritating relative, okay, and you want to share this irritation with your sister who deals with the same relative.
God.
So you can both go on and on about this, which is okay if you solve the problem. But if you don't solve the problem, if it's just, I'm going to let you know how upset this makes me, I know it makes me upset too. She's just miserable to live with the wicked witch of the West. All you do is just rehearse it. That's why diaries for girls are terrible. Because when they write in their diaries, they don't write how to solve their problems. They write how the world stinks, how mom and dad stink. And they write these emotions, and they're on paper. And they rehearse it. And it makes it worse. Yeah, that's a good question. There was another one, too, back in that direction there. Somebody had a hand raised. Yes, ma'am.
Often do you find in your practice that someone needs more spiritual help than to overcome anger? Like, you know, maybe like you give them tools to practice, but then at some point it still is just beyond practical matters and goes to spiritual.
How often do you find in your practice that somebody really needs some spiritual help here as opposed to just the supposed psychological ideas? Two things. People will say to me, are you a Catholic psychologist? I will say, no. I'm a psychologist who is Catholic. Now, if someone wishes to come to me for that reason, they want someone who thinks in their worldview, I am more than happy to do that. Much more than happy. On the other hand, if someone comes to me and says, I'm agnostic, I'm atheist, I'm a marginal Catholic, but I'm having trouble in my marriage, I'm having trouble with my neighbor lady, I'm having trouble with my kid, okay, I'll work with you. I may not use particular quote-unquote Catholic language, But much of what I say is still traditionally God's truth. Now, how often do they need more spiritual stuff? My experience as a shrink has been this. The most powerful conversions I've seen in life, not necessarily religious conversions where they leave behind really nasty behaviors, have been religious. Psychology doesn't have that kind of power. It just doesn't. Okay, unless the person really develops a relationship with God and Christ, it's a one step forward, two step backward kind of thing. I will suggest to folks getting some kind of spiritual guidance. For example, scrupulous folks. Scrupulous folks are miserable. They're flat out miserable. And I've become convinced when somebody is extremely scrupulous, it's an obsession. All right? And obsessions, they used to think were psychological. They now realize that more often than not, they're neurological. They're like a minor form of epilepsy. There are certain neurological pathways that are firing too easily. And they're just going on, and I can't seem to get rid of them. And I've had clients who say, as soon as I walk out of the confessional, I start worrying again that I wasn't forgiven, and that I didn't say my confession right, and that I better go back. I had one lady, I told her, I said, quit it, stop going to confession every week. Go once a month. Because confession to her was just this reassurance that I'm not going to hell kind of thing. And it was really a serious misuse of that. So I've referred her to priests and that, and didn't do any good, you know, but you're right. Yeah. One of the things that I as a psychologist deal with, and I think this is really important for Christians, one of the reasons people frustrate you is that they don't see themselves as they are. Okay, they're just blind to their irritating behavior or their frustrating behavior, which means something. That's this. Do we see ourselves as we are? I don't trust me. I do not trust that my assessment of who I am, my weaknesses, my liabilities, and my strengths is accurate. I just don't trust it. So as I've gotten older, I've made the prayer more and more and more and more. And this has kind of come to me through being a shrink. Because many of the people in my office don't see themselves as they are. Especially marriage situations. Oh my gosh. Marriage situations. You're the one that's wrong, not me. You're the problem, not me. Okay? So they do not see accurately. As a general rule, now, some people are very insightful. I beg God, please show me what I need to see about me, please. Because by definition, I'm blind to it. Now, if I truly want to know the way I am, I ask my wife. She'll tell me the way I am, whether I'm that way or not. And maybe that's something you can do. You have a trusted friend, trusted family member? Ask. Do I come off that way? Am I too bragging about my kid? Am I judgmental, really? I always used to say this to folks. I don't digress too far. When I was in the evangelical world, I left the church for 8 years. In the evangelical world, one of the reasons that people said others get upset at them was because their religion, their holiness, their beliefs convicted other people. In other words, well, you know, my brother is upset with me because I'm such a good Catholic. That's why he's upset with me. I mean, he sees what a good person I am, and down deep, that really bothers him. And I came to the conclusion that I have to separate out, is that really why they're upset with me? Or could it be I'm a jerk? You know, it's real easy to be a religious jerk. And oftentimes I'm not going to hide behind that idea that, well, obviously they're threatened. You know, they're threatened by the fact that I'm a homeschooling mother and I make this look easy. And they can't even handle their 1 6-year-old. And I deal with 9 children, and I seem to deal with my 9 far better than they deal with their 1. That must be why they're upset with me. That could be. But you always have to entertain the thought, Are you a judgmental jerk on top of it? And for me, I have to look at that. I have to say, please, Lord, tell me what it is about me that I need to see. My wife says she thinks that's what purgatory is. You're going to go in there and you're going to see exactly who you are and what your motives are and why you did what you did that wasn't so nice. And you just thought you were the sweetest lady in the whole world. One more. I don't want to keep you guys too long. Oh man, we're past time, aren't we? I got to do it. Past time?
10 minutes.
Well,
But I'm hearing from over there.
All right, I'll do another one. Do another one. And again, being Italian. By the way, you asked how to pronounce my name? The reason it's Guarendi, because that really doesn't sound Italian. My grandfather came here when he was 17. He couldn't speak English. When the immigration officer asked him his name, the name was Guarendi. The immigration officer wrote it down like he thought it was. And that's how we got that name. Much easier to change names in those days, you know what I mean? All right, my Uncle Giuseppe. I think this is beautiful. I think this is just beautiful. He was at a marriage conference. And Giuseppe had been married 48 years. And the priest said, Giuseppe, would you please tell these young people how to make a marriage last 48 years? He says, well, you got to be nice. You got to say good things. You got to treat us special. You got to remember the bigger days. For our 25th anniversary, I take her to Italy. The priest says, Giuseppe, that's beautiful. Now, you've been married 48. How are you going to top that? Well, for my 50, I'm going to go get her and bring her back. You're so sweet. Thank you very much.